lot of noise. It's funny, and it leads me to another, thing I want to get into with you is operational excellence, right? You probably remember, and we're Knicks fans, so I mean, Michael Jordan, he's the greatest, but it's painful still. The first time he shot a foul shot with his eyes closed, it was against the Denver Nuggets. And at the end of the game, the Bulls won. If I'm remembering this well, the Bulls won by like 8 points or something like that. By happy accident, Denver had missed like 8 free throws. So Chicago, with Jordan shooting with his eyes closed, was perfect on free throws. The most unsexy, unwhatever thing in sports is free throws, right? The most boring thing. But the team, including the Jordan one with his eyes closed, they were flawless. They wind up winning the game by like 8 points. Denver missed 8 free throws. So the point is that, like, had Denver been like just operationally excellent, perfect, whatever you want to call it, they would have at least tied the game and lived to fight another day. And it leads me to what I know that you and Solvative are really, really into, which is just like operationally being really tight. And it's one of these things where, it's never going to get you headlines. It's never going to probably make a board deck or whatever, but like it wins you championships, and it makes your month and quarter and so on. I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
Well, my first thought is that the free throw isn't boring when you need two to win and your guy misses the first one.
That's true, by the way.
But it's definitely not sexy then either. Yeah, I mean, like, genius is what, 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration? It's not really just the sweat, though, is it? Right. You still have to kind of do a good job. And that's, you and I have talked about this, you know what I mean? Like, I've been on the brand side a bunch. I've been on the, whatever you want to call it, consulting and SI side a bunch. And it's sort of one of these things where you're kind of in a bad relationship, but it feels like a lot of effort to get to a good one or move to a new one. And so you just sort of like accept each other's, sort of flaws, I guess, what codependency or whatever it might be. But it's like stressful, you're just sort of like accepting that this is the only way, I need to be, without crisis, what would I have? That sort of thing. And it always frustrated me, honestly, because you can look at a thing and you can say, like, this isn't that hard. We could simply do better, but for whatever reason, you find that that's harder than you think. The larger the organization gets, the harder it is to sort of like do. And so I've known these guys for a decade or so, and they always, had two qualities that really impressed me. The first was they're honest, and, we've all been in situations where, well, contractually, here's kind of where we are, but if you were a stand-up, person, we wouldn't do that. And they've always done the stand-up thing. They're just good partners. They want the people that they work with and that they know, to have good things, for lack of a better term, right? I said I was going to do that. I'm going to do it. I said it was going to cost that much. It's going to cost that much. I said it was going to work. It's going to work. You ran into a little trouble. I'm here for you. The second thing is they won't hire anyone or do anything unless there is excellence implicit in the direction. And so, for me, that's a low stress environment. I say, can you do this thing? They say, yes. They go, they do it. It comes back, pretty much works. We fine tune it a little bit, do a little QA, UAT, blah, 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 boom, it works. And that's nice. So I go talk to people and I say, you need something? Tell me what it is. We'll figure it out. If it's custom, we'll figure it out. We'll build it. It'll work. And that's nice. That's sort of like, a stress-free thing. Now, we're a company of 150 people. So I don't want to sit here, and tell somebody that's managing, 3 divisions, of an international enterprise with a large IT department and 3 global SIs and all the rest of it, that it's that easy, because, obviously it's not that easy.
It's tough stuff. This is tough stuff, by the way. The technology stuff, but people stuff, that's a whole separate thing. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a whole different discipline. You have to sort of, manage expectations and personalities and moods and this and that. It's not simple.
No, it's really, really hard. And then, you know, on top of it, the broader the mechanism is, the easier it is to simply point fingers. Why would I make the effort to change this when I can simply blame someone else for it? And that's the hardest thing, I think for like that you see with like leadership now. And I've talked about this, I think a lot is that at the very, very top, we see a lot of managing up, right? The board, the street, you know, I got to present these things for them, blah, 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 blah. It has to look like this, et cetera, right? And these are your organizational leaders, but the things that they're managing aren't necessarily organizational, right? Who is managing the doers? Who is aligning strategy to work? Right? Who is making sure that where we have cross-functional efforts, everybody's rowing in the right direction? And then you sort of get to the next level and you've got just sort of a hodgepodge of types of people. You might have people that have been there forever and are absolutely bona fide experts in one little area, but maybe aren't necessarily as modernized to look at, enterprise digital types of
So
things.
how do you
You
get
might
those
have,
guys outside? Because you have to, right? You call it whatever you want, coach them up, what have you. You got to push them, especially today. And it was always true, but especially that you got to push
yep,
them outside the comfort zone. And I'm a million percent in. Look, if Frank wants to solve a problem differently than Mary wants to solve a problem, and both get great results. So what do you need from me, right? Like as a leader, what do you need from me? I'm going to get you both what you need, but all 100% on that. But like, how do you? One wants to sort of be pushed, and some don't. What do you do there? I mean, because you gotta
yeah.
move them forward.
Well, that's the thing is that like you got to get in the middle. You got to get them in a room, right? You got to figure out like what's the commonality here. Sometimes it's just look, this is the plan, and here's your part in the plan. I don't need you two to be connected at the hip by any stretch of the imagination, but just understand that this is where we're going, and we can't do it without you, and you got to do it. So we can set it up for you to do it separately. We can set it up for you to do it together. One way or the other. You got to like work more often than not. You know, sit down, do a little relationship building or something like that. It like works out. But, what's the thing here is that means that you as a leader had to spend time managing down, not up, right? And it's harder because it's one-on-one time, it's interpersonal time, it's follow-up time. And the scope of that, is small. This is a two-person scope of effort, for leadership. And so what has a tendency to sort of happen is that is a thing that's sort of outsourced to a project manager somewhere who may not even be in the time zone, who's attempting to like make these things work. And now it's simply not going to happen. Right. Right. There's no history there. There may not even be in the building. There's no authority. So it sort of like falls apart. So, sort of to talk about the way that we do it is that like everything is a team, so if you need a pod of 4 or 5 people, right? That's your pod. They're on your Slack. They're on your teams. They're part of your team. They're available to you. And, my expectation is that their job is to help you do your job. My job is to be able to have the time to step in and make sure that teams work as teams, but like ultimately it doesn't really go, perfectly for any organization really ever. But at minimum, if you don't have a definition of done when you start,
Yeah.
how
By the
would
way,
you
isn't
know?
that the most important thing? Like, what is like when we finish? What will be true
Yeah,
when we finish? Will the
exactly.
color be green? Will 1 + 1 = 2? Like, what will be true when we're done? Like, isn't that just the most important thing? You in your seat might be very surprised, maybe not. How many, M shops, agencies, whatever, that I've seen come and go over the years, they do not start out an engagement like that. It's just this nebulous, vast thing
Yeah.
where it sounds like I mean, okay, you want us to deliver XYZ deliverables. Okay, you're working backwards from these, if I want to deliver this, these 10 things have to be true. And they're going to be in this phasing and this cadence and this and that. It sounds like you're basically pushing back down into your organization. All right, this team is responsible for this team is responsible for this, et cetera, et cetera. And you very, very clear swim lanes, customer facing, and then also definitely internally.
Everybody's customer. So, I mean, that's like everybody in our team is full stack. I probably told you this, right?
Yeah.
So,
I love that, by the way. That's
and this is
very
one of the
cool.
things that makes it so easy for me, obviously, is I don't have to pull a team together of 10% of an architect and 15% of a front end designer and 20% of a front end developer and 10% of a data management engineer and so on and so forth. Somebody that knows Commerce Cloud and blah, 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 right? Because that's just a nightmare. The calendar alone makes that a nightmare, right? Much less real-time availability. Now I got somebody on the front end that's gatekeeping,
Yeah.
communication and resourcing and all the rest of that. And so that makes the relationship hard. What we've sort of like done in those instances is we've recreated all the organizational and political problems of the client's organization. Pretty much the reason that they probably came to us is because we're not supposed to have that in our model as an outsourcer, right? So that's not, I just don't like it. I mean, in all honesty, I'm to be able to solve your problems.